On the morning of June 10, 1912, the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, was shaken awake by a discovery so horrifying that it would never again be forgotten. In a modest white house at 508 East 2nd Street, 8 people had been brutally murdered. 6 of them were children. The weapon was an axe. The killer slipped away into the night, leaving behind a mystery that still echoes more than a century later. The family who lived in that house was the Moore family. Josiah, known to friends as Joe, was a respected businessman in town. His wife, Sarah, was devoted to her church and her children. They had 4 kids, 11-year-old Herman, 10-year-old Catherine, 7-year-old Boyd, and just 5-year-old Paul. On the night of June 9th, the Moore family attended a special Children's Day program at their church. Sarah had helped organize it, and her children all took part. After the service, the 2 Stillinger sisters, Lena and Ina, were invited to spend the night at the Moore home. That simple invitation would seal their fate. The group walked home from church, arriving at the Moore residence sometime around 10 o'clock. They likely had no sense of danger, no feeling that anything unusual was about to happen. They went to bed in the quiet safety of a small town home, never imagining that a killer either lurked nearby or was already inside, waiting. Sometime after midnight, while the town slept, the killer struck. Moving room to room, the intruder used Josiah's own axe, delivering blow after blow as the family and their guests lay helpless in their beds. Josiah and Sarah were attacked first, their bodies left unrecognizable from the force of the strikes. Then the killer turned to the children's rooms. Each of the Moore children was murdered in their sleep, followed by Lena and Ina, who had been resting in the guest room. By dawn, 8 lives had been erased in the most brutal fashion imaginable. The horror was first uncovered the next morning. Concerned neighbors noticed that the Moores had not been seen outside and the house remained strangely quiet. When a relative entered to check on them, the grisly scene inside was revealed. It didn't take long for word to spread across the town. What had once been Villisca's pride as a close-knit community quickly became a place of whispers, fear, and suspicion. The crime scene was chaotic. News spread so quickly that curious townsfolk poured into the house, contaminating evidence and making it nearly impossible for investigators to piece together exactly what had happened. In 1912, forensic science was in its infancy, and the idea of preserving a crime scene was not yet standard practice. Dozens of people wandered through the Moore home, some even taking objects as grim souvenirs. Critical clues may have been lost forever that day. Still, some details emerged. The curtains in the house had been drawn, and in places where there were no curtains, the killer used pieces of clothing to cover the windows. Mirrors were also covered. A kerosene lamp with its chimney removed had been placed carefully at the foot of Josiah and Sarah's bed. Another was left at the foot of a Stillinger girl's bed. The murderer seemed to have taken his time, showing an eerie calm in arranging the scene after the slaughter. The murders shocked not just Villisca but the entire nation. Newspapers across the country reported on the case, painting images of a bloodthirsty killer who had escaped into the night. But despite the attention, the crime went unsolved. Several suspects were considered. One was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who had been in town the night of the murders and attended the Children's Day program. Kelly was described as peculiar, with a reputation for odd behavior and disturbing letters. He confessed at one point, but his story was inconsistent and later recanted. He went to trial, but the jury could not agree on his guilt, and he was never convicted. Another suspect was Frank Jones, a wealthy Villisca businessman who had once employed Josiah Moore. Tensions between the 2 men were well known, and rumors suggested Jones might have held a deep grudge. Some speculated he may have hired someone to commit the murders, but no hard evidence ever tied him to the crime. Other theories pointed to serial killers who may have passed through the region. But in the end, none of the suspects were proven guilty. The case grew colder with each passing year until it faded into legend, a terrifying mystery with no resolution. Over time, the house itself became a place of fascination. Families lived there after the murders, but none stayed for long. Many reported strange occurrences, voices in the night, unexplained footsteps, objects moving on their own. By the 1990s, the house had fallen into disrepair. It was then purchased and carefully restored to its 1912 appearance, preserved as both a historic site and a chilling reminder of what happened there. Today it is known as the Villisca Axe Murder House. Visitors come from all over the country to see it, and many claim to leave with experiences they cannot explain. Some report the sound of children crying or laughing in empty rooms. Others have heard doors creak open or slam shut when no one else was nearby. Some describe the sensation of being watched or touched, as though unseen hands brush against them. In the attic, where some believe the killer may have hidden before striking, guests often report feelings of dread so strong they cannot stay for long. Paranormal investigators have also spent nights in the house. Electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, have captured what sound like whispers or faint voices answering questions. Motion detectors have been triggered with no one in the room. Shadows have been seen moving across walls and staircases. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the sheer number of stories told by those who've entered the house keeps its haunted reputation alive. Not all of the stories are harmless. In 2014, a man participating in an overnight stay stabbed himself while inside the home. He later claimed he had no memory of the act. While he survived, the incident added fuel to the belief that the house exerts a dangerous influence over those who enter. The Villisca Axe Murder House stands today as both a museum and a place of pilgrimage for true crime enthusiasts and paranormal seekers alike. The small town of Villisca, forever tied to that summer night in 1912, has accepted the notoriety. Tours are given during the day, but for the truly brave, overnight stays are offered. Many who spend the night say they leave changed, convinced that something lingers within those walls. The case remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. With no surviving witnesses, no preserved evidence, and no confession that held up to scrutiny, the truth of what happened in Villisca may never be known. The killer, whoever they were, vanished into history. But the echoes of that night live on in the memories of a town, in the faded newspaper clippings that documented the horror, and in the house itself, where the past seems unwilling to rest. When people stand outside the Villisca Axe Murder House today, they see more than just a building. They see a time capsule of fear, tragedy, and unanswered questions. They see a reminder that evil can strike even in the most ordinary places. And they feel the weight of a mystery that has haunted a community for more than 100 years. The story of the Villisca Axe Murders is not just about who died, or even about who may have killed them. It is about the fragile boundary between safety and terror, between trust and suspicion, between ordinary life and unexplainable horror. It is a story that continues to draw people in, whether they are seeking history, truth, or perhaps something beyond this world. And so the White House in Villisca remains, standing quietly on East 2nd Street, its windows shuttered, its rooms preserved as they were on that terrible night. For some, it is a place of history. For others, it is a place of spirits. But for all who hear the story, it is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide in the most unexpected places. More than a century has passed, yet the Villisca Axe Murder House still whispers its story. A story of a lives cut short. A story of a killer who vanished into the night. And a story of a house that refuses to let its secrets be forgotten.